Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and in today's video, I'm going to be going over the things that I like and the things that I don't exactly like about the all-new Nissan Altima. Before we get into this video though, as always, if you want to save time and money the next time you purchase a car, link to my car buying guide in the description down below. Let's get into it. Now, the first thing that I like is the looks. So this is definitely more of a refresh rather than a full redesign when it comes to the styling with the Altima, but I still think that it's a good looking car. I love those new front lights. Side profile looks pretty nice with the wheels. And then popping over here to the rear with the darker badges and everything, just a good looking car overall. Now, the first thing that I don't like is the CVT. So this has Nissan's Xtronic CVT, and I guess I'll show you guys the shifter for it, which in terms of CVTs, it's actually pretty solid. You guys can see this whole setup. That being said though, it's still a CVT, and I guess that it's like weird to me that Nissan still uses CVTs when they have a 9-speed automatic that's actually a really good 9-speed automatic that would be amazing in this car. And if this car had that 9-speed automatic, I think that it would pull a lot more buyers towards it. So yeah, it's a good CVT, but it's still a CVT. Now, the second thing that I like is the interior. So Nissan's definitely brought up their interiors over the last couple of years quite a bit with the style and frankly with material use. As well, you can see this like double stitch design, which is pretty cool. And then look at the seats. I think those look great as well. And the steering wheel design, and the gauge cluster isn't the most modern, but still looks pretty good. And so like overall, like the interior design and theme and everything, I think they've just done a good job with just making their cars look and feel just a little bit more upscale, especially considering the price points that they're at. Now, the number two thing that I don't like is some of the safety tech. Okay, so this is getting a little nitpicky with this thing, but this does have blind spot monitoring. However, it shows up like right there instead of in the mirror, which definitely takes a second to get used to, but I mean, something you can get used to. The thing that's more important is this setup. Adaptive cruise control. It also has like steering assist, which you can see over there with that. And here's the deal. It's an okay system, but it's not a great system. I have had to intervene quite a bit with the system. But what I will say is this system doesn't like make you you have to have your hand on the steering wheel, but you don't constantly have to like fight with the steering wheel like some systems. So it's pretty good at like knowing that your hand is on the steering wheel when it is, but it still needs some kinks worked out in terms of like staying straight within the lane, because there's several times where the car was starting to kind of veer off and like get in the other lane, and it was definitely like, don't do that. Now, the number three thing that I like is the fact that this car's comfy. So I think that Nissan's done a good job with the suspension here on this new Altima. It's pretty dang comfortable when you go over bumps and everything. So good job on that. And then seat comfort's pretty good. These seats aren't perfect. I feel like this bottom section could be worked out a little bit to make it just a little bit more comfortable. But aside from that, overall comfort with this is great. I've done some pretty long commutes in this car while I've had it for the week, and no real complaints except for that little thing in the seat. Now, the third thing that I don't like is the fact that this is front-wheel drive only. So you can, in fact, get an Altima that has all-wheel drive, but you have to get it with the naturally aspirated 4-cylinder. You cannot get this turbo engine with all-wheel drive. It looks like Nissan is like basically trying to copy Toyota in every single way. And I mean, when I went to a Nissan event for the new Frontier, that's pretty much what they said with the Frontier. They said that they basically just benchmarked the Toyota Tacoma and then just try to beat it. And it looks like they're trying to do the same exact thing with this Altima. They're just benchmarking the Toyota Camry, and then they're just trying to beat it instead of like really trying to make something that's their own and, you know, maybe doing something groundbreaking for the segment. And all-wheel drive with a higher performance engine would be, because the Accord, front-wheel drive, Camry, front-wheel drive, this front-wheel drive. And so if they had this turbo engine with all-wheel drive, I think it would pull a lot of buyers from different vehicles. And again, it would make Nissan look different rather than, oh, so if you can't get a Camry for some reason because you don't want to pay the Camry price premium or whatever, then you go for the Nissan because it's basically the same car. That's kind of what it feels like. Now, the fourth thing that I like is the power. So if you haven't seen my review on this car already, then I recommend going and watch that on the main channel. But this does have a turbocharged 4-cylinder, which is pretty peppy. Again, the CVT does kind of hold the engine back a little bit. That being said, though, it's still a pretty quick car, and it puts down the power really well. And so compared to the base Altima that, again, has a naturally aspirated 4-cylinder, what's up, Peanut Gallery? Anyways, compared to the base Altima, this thing just absolutely rips, and it's got good passing power on the highway. So, like, overall, great job. Do you have anything else you'd like to say? Okay, next point. Now, the number four thing that I don't exactly like is the camera setup. So, gotta start her up. Ooh. And first off, I do want to put a quick disclaimer. I do think this camera system is way better than what Toyota has in like the Camry, for example, and what Honda has in the Accord. So Nissan's already winning compared to those vehicles, but it still is not the best with resolution. So it's cool that it has a 360 camera system, but again, the resolution's not the greatest, and so I think that if Nissan really wants to pull more market share from both those manufacturers, they need to do more than just like say, hey, we have a 360 camera system. They don't. We have a modern, like super good resolution 360 camera system, and they don't even have a 360 camera system. I think that would help out Nissan quite a bit more if they're trying to, again, pull buyers from Toyota and Honda. Now, the fifth thing that I like is the pricing. This is where things get pretty exciting, if you ask me, with this Turbo Altima, is the fact that it's pretty affordable compared to like a loaded up Camry, for example. So you guys can see $36,440, which isn't the cheapest ever, but I just reviewed a V6 Camry and it was over $40,000. And so you're pretty much getting, you know, a very similar car to a V6 Camry, but you're paying significantly less money for it. And that's kind of the thing that Nissan is doing right now, is they're always trying to be the value play when you compare their cars to Honda or Toyota, and it definitely works with this. And then the fifth thing is the fun factor in terms of the things I don't like. So this car does have a turbocharged engine and it's front wheel drive, and so you might think that it could have some level of fun factor. Maybe it's like a secret like long wheelbase hot hatch, and well, spoiler alert, it's not a secret long wheelbase hot hatch. It is definitely a big, floaty, larger, it's not like a huge sedan, but a larger size sedan, and it doesn't really have any exciting driving dynamics, and there's no drama with the car. Like I said, it puts on the power pretty well. It almost feels like it's all-wheel drive, even though it's front-wheel drive, and I think that a big part of that is it always feels like with CVTs, you lose so much power compared to like a regular torque converter automatic when you put your foot down. And so it's quick, but it's not quick enough to where it would be like super exciting. And then the other driving dynamics, like it's comfy, but I wouldn't really call this like fun to drive. Like this isn't really an enthusiast car, if that makes sense. So to sum things up with this Nissan Altima Turbo, I actually think it's a pretty good car overall, and the fact that they're undercutting the Camry by such a large margin I think is also pretty cool. That being said, Nissan has the ability to make this car so much better than it is, and so I'm not sure why they're not going that route, because again, they could have put the 9-speed automatic in this car instead of the CVT, and so yeah, maybe it would get slightly worse fuel economy, but I don't think someone purchasing a Turbo Altima, you know, they do care about fuel economy, but they don't care about it as much as someone purchasing the naturally aspirated Altima, if that makes sense. And so I think they would rather have the better performance associated with the 9-speed automatic. And then, you know, Nissan makes the GTR, they make the Z, and so if they're gonna make an Altima Turbo, they could have done a little bit more to just make it, I guess, more engaging from a driving perspective. Nothing crazy, because again, this ultimately competes against a Camry, which is one of the most boring cars ever when it comes to driving dynamics. And so yeah, I think it's a good car overall. I do think that there are some improvements that could be made to make the car that much better. But I mean, we have a I can't even talk. We have a Turbo Altima that is $4,000 cheaper than a Camry. So I think that's a win. Let me know what you guys think about it.